Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today at the Entheos Academy for Optimal Living. My name is Matt Cook, and today we'll be joined by Sheila Kamara Hay for a great class on how to expand your sensuality and prepare for an ecstatic birth. Before we get started, just a couple of reminders about this live event. First, we would love to hear from you. You can chat with us and other participants over in the area to your right. Please ask your questions here and we'll come back to them during the Q&A portion of the class. Also, we are live streaming, so please expect some bumps along the way, and if the stream drops, we'll be back ASAP. So just a quick mini bio on Sheila. Sheila Kamara Hay is a writer, ecstatic birth advocate, and super mama to her 3 little ones. She researches ways on how a woman can enjoy childbirth and makes that information accessible to as many women as possible. So why I'm excited about this class. Sheila Kamara Hay taught a class with us in November entitled How to Have an Ecstatic Birth, Changing the Paradigm. She also is a featured expert in the Optimal Parenting 101 virtual conference. So with that, let's jump right in, Sheila.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone at Entheos for making this happen. Welcome, everybody. I'm really excited to be here and talk about how to expand your sensuality in preparation for an ecstatic birth. So before we begin, I want to delve into, well, what are we even talking about? What is an ecstatic birth? So at the most basic level, an ecstatic birth is an experience that a woman can enjoy. It's a childbirth experience that she can enjoy. And that's a really big paradigm shift, right? Because for thousands and thousands of years, since the story of Eve, we've been taught that women are supposed to suffer during childbirth. That childbirth is not supposed to be pleasurable. So we're really flipping that around. And as Matt mentioned, last month we talked about how do we change our paradigm of birth from one of pain to one of pleasure. And today what I'd really like to do is hone in on one of the aspects of ecstatic birth preparation we talked about last time, which was your relationship to your sexuality and your relationship to your sensuality. So childbirth at its essence is very interrelated to your sexuality, even though in our culture, in our world, we don't really perceive it in that way. But if you just take a moment to think about the fact that you have sex, you get pregnant, you gestate for 9 months, and then you give birth, you can see that they are part of one and the same process. And you use the same body parts, you're using a lot of the same organs, you're secreting a lot of the same hormones. So there's this really strong interrelationship between your sexuality and your birthing body. So that said, just like a sexual experience, you can enjoy having sex or you cannot, right? And the same thing goes with birth. You can enjoy your birthing experience or you cannot. So today we're going to talk about what are some of the things that you can do with your sensuality and your sexuality to really begin to enjoy your birthing experience, and how can you prepare to enjoy your birthing experience. So much like in sex, you're going to want to feel really comfortable and really relaxed in your body, because imagine if you're having sex and you're very fearful. What's going to happen? Your body's going to tense up and you're not going to really be able to allow the sensations, feel the sensations, and enjoy the sensations. So fear, just like in sex, is a really, really big factor in birth. And that's a factor that I'd like to talk about next month. I'll do a class entitled How to Disarm Your Fears in Preparation for an Ecstatic Birth. But right now I want to talk about the other side of it. It's like, how do you, if your body is relaxed, if you're in that space, how can you really begin to savor and enjoy the sensations of childbirth? So before you think to yourself, oh my gosh, this lady is completely off her rocker, I just want to share that I've been there. I've had a very traumatic birth experience. I had no idea what people who were talking about positive birth experiences were talking about. And I've also, made the journey to having had 2 very positive birth experiences and a very ecstatic birth experience. So everything that I'm about to share with you started on myself. I treated myself as a guinea pig. I went through it myself. And what I found was something that really blew me away, that the amount of pleasure available to women in birth was something that I had no conception of. And it's really the reason why I'm here is I just want women to know what's available to them, because once you know your options, that's when you can really choose. So that said, we can dive right into how to melt into your sensuality to prepare for an ecstatic birth. Our first big idea is that sensual expansion is the journey to feeling more pleasure in your body. And in order to really understand what I'm saying there, I want to draw a distinction between the word sensual and the word sexual. These are two words that are they're used interchangeably quite often, but they have very distinct meanings. So when you're talking about something sexual, you're referring to an end result. There's a goal in mind when you're talking about something sexual. There's an end to that reference. But when you're talking about sensual, you're really talking about taking everything in through your senses, experiencing the world through your senses. And while sex can be a very sensual experience, you can have a sensual experience just walking through the park or eating a bowl of ice cream. So sensual does not necessarily have anything to do with sex. So that's really what we're going to be talking about, is how do you learn to experience more of the world through your senses and then feel the pleasure that's available to you, and how do you augment those feelings within your body so that you can really tap into the pleasurable ones. Now that said, as I mentioned earlier, childbirth, you're birthing with your sexual body. So that said, we will be talking a lot about expanding your sensuality within your sexual body as well. We will spend quite a bit of time focusing on it, but I just wanted to make clear that there are a lot of ways to pull sensuality into your childbirth experience, some of which are sexual and some of which are not. So, as I said, sensual expansion is learning to notice the sensations in your body, learning to notice the pleasurable ones, learning to really feel and savor them, and learning to augment them. So, why is this even important? So, just like, in general, most of us understand that happier people in life focus on the positive, right? This is a very similar journey, except it's on a bodily level. So people that can feel more pleasure in their body are more able to hone in on the positive sensations of pleasure in their body, and they're more able to call on them when they want to and more able to access them. So that's really what we're talking about with sensual expansion. And just like you can't say to someone, you should be an optimist and expect that overnight a flip will be switched and they'll become an optimist. Sensual expansion, very similarly, it's a practice, it's a journey. So that's actually our second big idea, which is practice is the only doorway into this world of pleasure. So when you're expanding your sensuality, you're actually reorienting your body. You're reorienting the way you interact with the world. Just like if you're, trying to be a more positive person, that's a practice. You're reorienting, how you think about things and how you process your experiences. So this is the same thing on the physical level. You're really learning to feel the pleasure that's available to you, really learning to focus on it, and the more you're able to do that, the more pleasure is available to you through your body. And so sensual expansion is really a lifelong journey. The more you practice, the more pleasure is available to you, and there's really no end. The amount of pleasure available to you through your senses and through your body is really infinite. And so this is a lifelong journey, and it'll serve you not just in childbirth, but it'll serve you in your enjoyment of life in general. So you might be thinking, well, but I'm pregnant. I have only a couple of months, and that's true, or a few months. You don't have your full life. So that's absolutely true. What I recommend to a lot of women that I work with is that they journal their journey, journal their sensual expansion experience. So you get yourself a journal, and in that journal, start recording all sensations of pleasure in your body, all experiences of pleasure throughout your day. I had a very wise teacher said to me that when you journal, your journey moves at the speed of light. And I've found that is actually the case, that is actually true. And the reason for that is when you set the intention to journal, all of a sudden you're moving through your day looking for those instances that you're going to journal about. So you're really looking for them. And things that might have escaped your notice, all of a sudden you will notice because you're looking for them. And then when you're in the midst of a pleasurable experience, you'll really pay attention because you have to journal about it later. And then when you go into your journal and you start to write about it, you're really like re-savoring and augmenting that experience. So all of this helps the amount of pleasure that you're noticing and you're experiencing to really expand. So journaling is a really, really helpful tool when you're pregnant to help speed up your process and to help reorient you towards pleasure in a really powerful and really efficient way. The other nice thing about journaling is it makes you really conscious about what brings you pleasure. So as you journal, you'll start to really notice patterns. You'll start to notice on a more conscious level, what are the things that really bring me pleasure? What does pleasure feel like in my body? And how can I integrate those things into birth? So a lot of instances of pleasure are things that you can bring into the birthing room with you, whether it's a sense of touch or a sense of smell or something you're looking at. So the more you journal and you become conscious of what you actually enjoy, the more you can build that into your birth experience. So that brings us to our third big idea, which is that learning to orgasm well is really powerful birth preparation. So by learning to orgasm, I'm talking about sensual expansion within your sexual body. So learning to orgasm or your orgasmic expansion is really, it could be learning to orgasm, it could be learning to have multiple orgasms, it could be learning to orgasm on demand, it could be learning to enjoy and really savor your orgasms, to feel more pleasure within your orgasms. There's really a lot of different possibilities, and there's always more pleasure. So wherever you are in relationship to your sexuality and your orgasm, there's always more. So learning to orgasm well is really powerful birth preparation. Now, why is that? The reason for that is that the journey to learning to orgasm is a journey to learning how to handle really intense sensations in your body, to really open to those sensations, really allow them, really relax through them, really savor and enjoy them. Similarly, you're learning how to handle really massive amounts of energy flowing through your body. This is the same thing in birth. In birth, you have an incredible amount of sensation in your body. And you also have like major life force energy moving through you. So the goal in natural childbirth prep and the goal in orgasmic expansion is kind of one and the same. It's to learn how to handle the sensations and to learn how to open yourself up to tremendous amounts of energy. So given that the goals are the same, the tools are the same too. So you need to be able to learn to relax and surrender. So some of the tools you would use in order to learn to orgasm well are similar to the tools that you would use to learn to have a natural childbirth experience or to manage your labor during natural childbirth. So, for example, one of these is your breath. So there are a lot of different modalities for how you can breathe to relax your body and to manage your energy flow and to manage the intensity of sensations in your body, both in orgasmic expansion as well as in natural childbirth. So breathing is a really powerful tool that's used in both modalities. Another is sounding. So there's this saying in the birth world, as above, so below. So when you are relaxed in your mouth and in your neck and in this area, you're relaxed down below as well, in your lips of your vulva and your vaginal canal. All of that is relaxed as well. So sounding is a really powerful tool in the birth world to help you open and to help move the energy through and to help you manage the sensation. Similarly, in orgasmic expansion, sounding is a tool that's also used to help you handle like the overwhelming amounts of sensation and energy flow. The other thing that's similar within the two is this idea of a really deep relaxation and a really deep surrender. So in both modalities, you're learning to fully relax your body and fully allow sensations to wash over you. and to allow that like integration of what your body's going through that really deep relaxation and surrender. So these are just some of the tools that are the same when you're learning how to orgasm well and when you are doing some natural childbirth preparation. So that said, as you begin to learn how to orgasm or to access more pleasure with your orgasm in your body, you're creating pathways of pleasure in your body. And the more your body is familiar with accessing certain amounts of pleasure in certain ways, you'll be able to call on them, whether consciously or unconsciously, in different situations. So there's a statistic in the natural birth world that 20% of natural births are naturally orgasmic. So that means that these women, while they're giving birth and while they're pushing their babies out, these women are having spontaneous orgasms. Now, I'm willing to bet that most of these women that are having spontaneous orgasms when giving birth are naturally very orgasmic. Because their body is already trained for pleasure in that way, it tends to react very easily towards pleasure when that area of their body is stimulated. So this is another reason why orgasmic expansion is really powerful birth preparation. And I shared this story in last month's class too, but I'll share it again because it's really relevant. I spoke to a woman who did not have awareness of any of this information. She went to give birth in a hospital, asked for her epidural right away, and went through her labor and birth, and as she was pushing, her epidural had already worn off. And as she was pushing, she starts to realize that she's orgasming after orgasm after orgasm, and was completely, taken by surprise and, a little bit ashamed and didn't tell anyone for a long time. But when she was sharing this story with me, she shared that, she's naturally very orgasmic. Like her body reacts very easily, goes into the throes of orgasm very easily. So again, if your body is trained, if your pleasure pathways are open, you're more likely to be able to go there, during your childbirth experience and just during life in general. It's a good training to have a more pleasurable life in general, but it is directly relevant to childbirth. Okay, which brings us to our next big idea. Is your birth environment sexy? A lot of research has found that a lot of the same conditions that make for optimal sex make for optimal birthing. So, and the reasons for that are, as I said before, it's the same parts of your body, it's the same systems within your body. So, as in sex, when you're giving birth, you are opening the most intimate, sacred part of yourself. And so for a lot of women, they would like to feel safe. They would like to feel loved. They would like to feel supported. These are all things that can really help if you're feeling those things during birth as well as in sex. Now, you can use this also to inform where you want to birth, with who you want to give birth. You can think about what are the conditions that allow you to really enjoy sex, allow you to really open yourself up, allow you to really relax and surrender, and how many of those things can you bring into your birthing room? So you can think about the physical environment. How can you make the physical environment of your birthing space resonate with your sensual nature? So what are the different things that you can bring in to feast your senses on? Look through your pleasure journal. What are the things that you've discovered that really give you pleasure? What of those things can you integrate into your birthing room? Also, being sensual with your partner. So being sensual during your birth actually raises your levels of oxytocin, which is the hormone of love and bonding. Oxytocin also supports the body in contractions. It supports the uterus in contracting. So raising your levels of oxytocin during birth is a really good thing because it supports the progression of your labor. It supports, your uterus contracting and pushing the baby out. And some of the ways that you can raise your levels of oxytocin can be as simple as just eye gazing, cuddling, touching, You can also be more sexual. Nipple stimulation, sex and orgasm, all of these things help raise the level of oxytocin. So there's one other reason that you would want to be sensual or even sexual within your birth environment. The more turned on you are, the more blood flow there is into your pelvic area. The more blood flow there is, the more your tissues are able to stretch and open easily without, they become more stretchy and more spongy and more pliable. You know, women actually have as much erectile tissue as men, but you just can't see it. So your erectile tissue is all around your vulva, your vaginal walls, and when all of that stuff becomes engorged and full of blood, it is much more stretchy and pliable, and it's much easier for a woman to open up and have her baby. Not to mention also when you're turned on, you're lubricated, and that also supports a really smooth and easy delivery. Okay, so our next big idea, my dog is sitting here between my legs. All right, our next big idea is that orgasms are a powerful labor management tool. So there's two ways to think about orgasmic births. There's the women that have spontaneous orgasms during birth, as we mentioned earlier. These women are just pushing their baby out, and all of a sudden they start to orgasm. So that's one way to think about an orgasmic birth. Another way is to think about orgasms as a labor management tool. So what do I mean by that? Orgasms can actually jumpstart your labor. So this is, I should just take a moment to say that for some women, orgasms are actually contraindicated during pregnancy. And it's usually women that are high risk because orgasms can actually cause your uterus to contract. So as with anything, you want to check in with your healthcare practitioner before you do anything. Make sure that, all of this is safe for you given your pregnancy and your situation. So orgasms can be used to move a sluggish labor along. They can be used to jumpstart a labor. And the reason for that, as I mentioned earlier, is the oxytocin. When you have an orgasm, you flood your body with a lot of oxytocin, and that oxytocin actually will cause your uterus to contract and will support the progress of your labor. Now, another way to use orgasms as a labor management tool is to use orgasms to manage your sensation. So orgasms are actually a really powerful natural painkiller, more powerful than some of the strongest drugs out there. So in addition to flooding your body with a lot of really good sensations, an orgasm also floods your body with a whole cocktail of hormones, one of which is the oxytocin that I mentioned earlier. And in addition to the oxytocin, you release some serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter associated with mood, sexual desire, and even pain perception. And you also release endorphins. Now, endorphins are, the technical definition is endogenous morphine. That means that it's a naturally occurring morphine in your body. So with the endorphins, they're an opiate-like chemical that your body releases along with orgasm, which actually increases your body's threshold to pain. So studies have actually shown that an orgasm can increase your pain sensitivity by up to 100%. So not only does the orgasm make you feel good, it helps you, it helps with the progression of your labor, and it also helps manage the sensations of labor. So that's why orgasms are a really powerful labor management tool. Okay, that brings us to our sixth big idea, which is that clearing the body's energy paves the way for a smooth labor and birth. So to understand this big idea, we need to think for a moment that we have energy flowing through our body all the time. As we go through life, the energy patterns in our body shift as we have different experiences, as we store different memories in our body, and even as we might repress some negative memories and emotions, that'll affect the energy flow into our body. But our body has its own wisdom, it has its own history, and it also has its own, its own blocks, like the things that, we've repressed through time. And that can affect energy flow in our body. And so what happens during labor is all of a sudden you're flooded with a really massive amount of life force energy. It's just more energy than you've ever had going through your body in your life. And one of the things energy work does is it brings up that stuff. It brings up all the stuff that, we've been hiding in our body, all the stuff that we've been repressing, any limiting beliefs, any sexual trauma that's like hidden in our tissues. All of that is going to come up during labor and birth. So really high percentage of women that have had sexual trauma in their past end up having C-sections for this reason, because what happens is if your body your whole life has been suppressing energy, a certain flow of energy through your pelvic area, when the energy is flowing through you to give birth, you're going to resist that. You're going to, whether it's conscious or not, you're going to resist that with your whole being, because that's what you've done your whole life. And so that can really cause complications during labor and birth. And the more that you can clear that stuff up ahead of giving birth, the more you'll be paving your way for a really easy and smooth flow of birth. So if you are conscious of any trauma in your sexual body or any limiting beliefs or any fears, I really suggest that you clear that consciously. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. In the realm of energy work, acupuncture is very popular, especially for women trying to get pregnant. Acupuncture is usually a tool to increase energy in our pelvic region and make it more likely for a woman who's having difficulty to conceive. So acupuncture is probably the most popular modality, but Reiki is another one. And, it's my contention that orgasmic expansion is actually really powerful energy work, because as we talked about earlier, in orgasmic expansion, you are learning how to handle massive amounts of energy flowing through your body, and particularly in your pelvic area. So whichever modality of energy work you decide to do, just having all of that energy flow through your body, and if you do orgasmic expansion, particularly in your pelvic area, flowing all of that energy through will also help to clear out some of the stuff you might not be conscious of. And the more that stuff is cleared, the more you'll have a smooth and easy flow to your birth. So our next big idea is really simple: get a guru. So I'm not a sexual educator. But what I want to say is that there is so much to learn about our bodies. There's so much to learn about what's possible. There's so much pleasure to be had. And the more you know what's possible, the more, possibilities there are for you, the more things you can choose, and the more you can enjoy life. And there are 1,000,001 sexual educators out there, each with their own unique style, their own unique lineage, their own way of speaking. And I really suggest that you find someone that speaks to you, that you feel comfortable with, who, when they speak, it feels like really affirming to you, and who you feel like you would like to learn from and you would like to explore with. And so just as there are a lot of different sexual educators, there's a lot of different ways to practice orgasmic expansion. There's, hands-on, there's hands-off, there's with a partner, there's without a partner. So you really need to explore what feels good to you, what feels like really affirming to you, and what you feel safe with. So just like choosing a doctor or midwife or doula, you want to find someone who, when you hear them speak, or when you read their books, or when you are soaking in their understanding of the sexual body, it feels really good to you and really wholesome and really like in line with who you are. So really get a guru. And also the other thing is, a sexual educator can help guide you about what is safe and what is not safe during pregnancy, because as I mentioned before, some orgasmic practices are not safe during pregnancy. I just want to share two women that I personally really love. The first is a woman named Sherry Winston. And Sherry worked in the field of women's health for years, and was a doula, a childbirth educator, a midwife, before she switched gears and became a sexual educator. So she has a really strong understanding of the interconnectedness between the birthing room and the bedroom, And she found that everything that she was teaching women in childbirth really applied to the bedroom and made that switch. So Sherry to me is has been a really great mentor, a really great source of wisdom. And for me, I just love her. She has an incredible book called Women's Anatomy of Arousal, where she talks a lot about like how you can train the body towards pleasure in different ways. There's another woman who I love, and her name is Saida Desilets, and she comes from the Taoist lineage of sexual expansion and the multi-orgasmic woman. And Saida, to me, every time I hear her speak, she just feels really affirming to me. She feels really like she makes me honor my femininity on a whole new level. She makes me really feel like my body is sacred and my sexuality is sacred. And I just really love everything that I hear coming from her. And so I really suggest that you find someone similar for yourself, somebody that really inspires you and makes you feel like, wow, I didn't even know this was possible, and I want to learn more. And so that's our 7th big idea. 8th is feeling is the simplest and most powerful practice. So yes, I want you to find a sexual educator to work with, but I also wanted you to walk away today with a feeling of, you have something that you can practice right here and right now. So I'm going to share a really simple practice that I like to do, and it's a practice that can take 2 minutes or 5 minutes or more, depending on how much time you have in your day. But it's a really simple practice, and I call it sensation, stimulation, and integration. So the first stage of it is sensation, and I recommend you do this practice lying down, but if you're at work and you want to do it, you can do it in your chair. So the first stage of this practice is you're just going to really relax your body, like fully relax your body. You're going to close your eyes and you're going to go inward. And as you close your eyes and go inward, you're going to feel the sensations in your body. And if you want, you can take a moment now and do it. Just take a deep breath and close your eyes wherever you are and just feel into your body. And see what you notice. Do you notice any pain in your body? Any pleasure? Can you notice both at the same time? You can do a full body scan and actually start at your head and go all the way down. And notice, are you gripping anywhere in your body? Are you able to relax your whole body? So this is an exercise to just really, and you can open your eyes now if you want to. This is an exercise where you're just learning what it feels like inside your body. And you're learning your patterns. For example, one of the things I learned about myself was that there was an area in my head and an area in my hips that I was always gripping in. Even when I thought I was fully relaxed, there were these 2 areas that I was always like gripping a little bit. And it took me time and practice to learn how to release them and consciously release them. And it was one of those things that I brought into the birthing room with me. I told my doula and my husband to always just check in with me when I was relaxed to make sure I was releasing those 2 areas. So the first stage of this practice, the sensation, is learning to connect with the sensations in your body, learning to see if you can find pleasure in your body, just lying there and just relaxing. Can you find any instances of pleasure in your body? And can you augment them? Can you access them whenever you want? Can they grow? Like, how does that feel in your body? So you can stop right there and journal right there, or you can move into the next stage of the practice, which is stimulation. So you're going to pleasure yourself for just a couple of seconds. And that could be with, the scent of something, or a stroke, a touch, or looking at a beautiful image. You're just going to give your senses a burst of pleasure for a few seconds. And then you're going to go back into that relaxed state and check out, this is the 3rd state of integration. So how has your body integrated that stimulation that you just gave it, that dose of pleasure? What differences do you feel in your body? How does that pleasure feel in your body that you gave yourself? Has it changed since before? So these are some things that you want to do, and you want to journal it, because as I mentioned earlier, when you journal something, it moves at the speed of light. So sensation, stimulation, integration. It's a very simple practice. You can do it in under 2 minutes if you want, or you can take as much time as you want. It's up to you. So then our next big idea is that your body is 100% programmable. So in your orgasmic expansion journey or in your sensual expansion journey, you are basically accessing your pleasure networks. You are increasing the pleasure receptors in your body. You're creating these pathways in your body for pleasure. And the more you become familiar with those pathways, it becomes a habit, and your body will experience more and more pleasure just by virtue of that habit. So this idea that our body is 100% programmable, you're already starting to program your body with your sensual expansion journey. But just to really make the point, I don't know how many of you remember the story of Pavlov's dogs. He was a scientist who, every time he went to feed his dogs, he would ring a bell first. And over time, he found that just ringing the bell was enough to make the dog salivate. There didn't actually have to be any food there. So he created a neural connection in the dogs that the sound of the bell meant yummy food. So you can do something very similar with your sensual expansion practice, where there can be certain things in the room as you're practicing, whether it's a certain music or a certain scent. And as you're doing your practice, your body will begin to associate that sound or that scent or that image with the amount of pleasure that you're receiving. So I just wanted to make that point, that for those of you that are truly fierce out there, you can actually program your body for pleasure as much as you want. And this is very possible. I've seen women who are able to just relax into orgasm. They literally just take a deep breath and relax, and their body starts to orgasm. And I always think to myself, wow, I always wonder how that woman would give birth. I think that would be extraordinary. So with that, you want to think about what are the things that consistently turn you on, and bring those into your birth. And then, if you want to take it a step further, you can really start to program your body, consciously create neural connections while you're doing your sensual expansion practice. So whatever that scent is or that sound is, you'll start to associate it with the amount of pleasure that you receive in your practice. And, this might sound a little bit far out to you, but I just want to say that that's what hypnobirthing is all about. So when you take a hypnobirthing class, that's actually what they're doing. They're training your body with a certain stimulation to go into a deep relaxation. So when I took hypnobirthing, this was 7 or 8 years ago now, what they had my husband do was rub my shoulder, and then we would do this deep meditation where we go into a deep relaxation. And the idea was that each time we practiced that rubbing of the shoulder would start to automatically send my body into a deep relaxation. So you can do the same thing with pleasure. Rather than aiming for the deep relaxation, you can aim for incredible amounts of pleasure, or deep relaxation with pleasure, or whatever it is that you have in your mind. All of this is possible and more. So last but not least, I want to drive home the point that there's a certain rhythm that pulses through everything. It's the rhythm of expansion, contraction, expansion, and contraction. So, in birth, you have that rhythm. With orgasms, you have that rhythm. With sensual expansion, you have that rhythm. And really with life, you have that rhythm. It's a rhythm of expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction. And the reason I really want to make you conscious of this is because when you're conscious of that rhythm and you start to notice it and see it everywhere, you can count on that rhythm, and you can start to use it for your advantage. You can start to use it for your pleasure. So, for example, within birth, you're always going to have this intense sensation, and then you're going to have a rest. And you know that rest is coming, you know that break is coming. And so just being able to anticipate that break allows you to move through the sensation, and then when that break comes, you can really relax deeply into it and really soak in all the pleasure that's available to you in that break. And that break is really, really important. And that break is when you're opening. And a lot of your growth, a lot of your opening is happening in those quiet pauses in between. And so, you can use that knowledge. Also, in your sensual expansion journey, when you orgasm, your body is actually physically going through that pulsing, that expansion and contraction, And in your sensual expansion journey, you will come to places where it's just too much. And that's where you stop, and that's where you pause, and that's where you really just kind of like revel in the integration of all the sensations that you've soaked your body in. And it's in that pause that some of our most profound shifts happen. Now, similarly in life, we live in a very like go, 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 go society. And a lot of us never take that break unless it's forced upon us, either by us crashing or, we get sick or something. And that's not very pleasurable. It doesn't feel very good. But if you know that this is the rhythm of birth, this is the rhythm of orgasm, this is the rhythm of life, and you can actually plan those breaks for yourself, then you can enjoy those breaks and know and honor those breaks as an important part of your journey, an important part of your progress, so that when you're ready to go out there and let your energy flow outward into the world, you're recharged. So there you have it, sensual expansion as a form of birth preparation. I hope that you enjoyed this class. I hope you enjoyed the information. And if there are any questions, bring it on. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Right on. Well, thank you so much, Sheila. So much to take in there, but I love that final idea of being able to even apply just the rhythm of birthing to all aspects of life, and that it even applies to both sexes, and that, it's very universal in that way. Wonderful. So right off the bat, let's jump right in. Millie asks, when are your favorite times to journal? We spoke about pleasure journaling. And are there better times of the day to journal our sensual experiences?
Okay, that's a great question. I think it's whatever works for you, right? So whatever works within the context of your life. So right now I have like 3 little kids running around my house. So for me, journaling tends to happen really like first thing in the morning or later in the day. But when I was actively practicing and preparing for pregnancies, I had my journal with me at all times so that I could jot things down right away and remember things right away. And it was very interesting for me to notice that in the beginning, I really had to like stretch to find things to journal about. And it only took like a few days or a week or so before I had so much that I just didn't have time to journal everything. So it's a really fascinating process. And I think, Millie, whatever works for you, whatever works for your life, and whenever you have those quiet spaces to journal is just fine.
That's incredible. Wonderful. And Teresa here offers that, I think I may have had an ecstatic birth. What does an ecstatic birth feel like in the body?
Well, I think if you think you had one, you've had one. I think an ecstatic birth is, in my last class, I talked about how an ecstatic birth can have a lot of different levels of pleasure. Today we talk primarily about physical pleasure, but ecstatic births can also be like really overwhelming, like spiritual experiences, really overwhelming, like emotional highs. So just like, if you climb a mountain, every step of that journey might not feel 100% pleasurable, but when you get to the top of that mountain and you have that high, and it's like a yes, I did it. So an ecstatic birth can look like that, or an ecstatic birth can be just more of like an inward bubbling of pleasure, or it can just be like full body bliss. It can be any of those things. But I think if you suspect you had an ecstatic birth, then you probably had an ecstatic birth.
That's incredible. Emma asks, any movement systems or exercises we can learn to gain more feeling in our bodies? We talked about being able to feel sensation. We did the breathing exercise. Any systems?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, and I didn't touch on movement, and I should have, so I'm really grateful for you to bringing that up. So dance is really amazing. Dance is an amazing modality for learning how to feel more sensation in your body. And who you learn dance from, you're going to have to like kind of trust your instinct and trust your gut, because some dance modalities are all about the performance. But if you can find a dance modality which is more about like going inward and following the sensations within your body, that right there is really powerful birth prep. And I know that a lot of like the more feminine modalities like belly dancing or even pole dancing, that circular movement is really supportive of birthing in general, so that can be something to explore. But one of the things that I really love is, just like turning the lights out or having like really dim sensual lighting and putting music on really loud so it floods your senses, and closing your eyes and moving to that music. So you're really following the pleasure inside your body and letting that guide your movement. And that is something that I stumbled upon organically in one of my births, and it took me so high. And I just want to say that because in a lot of natural childbirth classes, there's such an emphasis on like going limp and surrendering in your body. And that's great. And that's definitely like a good tool. And, I use that in one of my births as well. But there's this flip side where sometimes it's that like movement that will bring you true bliss. And it's that movement that enables you to play with the sensation and dance with the sensation and transform it into something pleasurable.
That's incredible. It almost sounds like a pleasurable meditation in motion type of.
Absolutely, that's exactly what it is.
That's
exactly
incredible.
What it is.
Wow. Well, so Emily then asks, should my orgasm? So I think she's referring to right before childbirth, pre. Should my orgasm be initiated by my man, or should I do it myself? What if? And then attached to that, what if I don't feel sexy?
Okay, well, it can be initiated by either one of you. It's really, again, it's like, how do you feel comfortable? Like, do you feel comfortable giving yourself an orgasm? Do you feel comfortable having your man give you an orgasm? Like, where are you? Where are you giving birth? Like, who's around you? Like, how do you feel comfortable? And so you might not be in a situation where you feel sexy. So you might, just start with just like the movement we talked about, or you might do like cuddling or eye gazing, or just like get a massage, a sensual massage, so you can start to kind of stimulate yourself in these other sensual ways, which are also really powerful. Like just something as simple as like eye gazing with your partner can up your levels of oxytocin. So these are some other ideas. It's kind of, you can't really like force it if you don't feel sexy. I think one of the things that birth really teaches you is to like listen to your body and like follow the wisdom of your body. But that said, I've heard stories of women who will take a vibrator into the birthing room and use that through every contraction to manage sensation. So it's really about you like looking inward and thinking, okay, where do I feel comfortable? Like, how do I feel comfortable? And to what extent do I feel comfortable integrating this information? And there are a lot of like factors that go into that, and so you really need to like look into yourself. And that's actually something that I do professionally as well, as I talk to women about how do you take all of this information and then like integrate it into your personal reality. But my husband is like this, or I have to birth here, like how do I do this? So it's a process, and everyone's birth is different, and everyone's circumstances are different. Like nobody's lived your life, nobody knows what your situation is like but you. So it's something you really have to feel out yourself and figure out what you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, and as you alluded to, I can't wait for the class on the male's side of the ecstatic birth. So, and actually, similarly, going along with that, Robbie asks, is there a way of getting my man to experiment with me in having sensual but not sexual experiences? So maybe some practices, I'm assuming, is something to that effect.
Yeah, you can set up like sensual playtime and just have it be like very clear that you're gonna for 5 minutes give each other sensual pleasure, and that there will be no sex, right? So it could be just like you could during one session you could take like feathers and like stroke each other, or you could take flowers and like just put it over your faces and smell like you're giving each other pleasure. Like you can spend 2 minutes each on each other. How do you give each other sensual pleasure? And just play with different things and see what you enjoy. You can feed each other. That can be a very sensual experience. So, but I think if you want to be clear, and that can kind of take the pressure off, just make it like very clear from the get-go that this is not going to be a sexual experience, that you're researching your sensuality, and you can play with all your different senses and figure out what is he like, and he can figure out what you like, and you can learn together in that process.
Wonderful. Josie asks, How have you learned to program yourself for orgasm? So maybe that's a little strong, but yeah, maybe what are some practices to be able to program ourselves, as we talked about, like the Pavlovian dogs?
Yeah, well, like I said, two women that I really love are Sherry Winston and Saida Desolé, and I have their books, and they both share a lot of practices in their books, and I kind of pick and choose. Like some practices I really call to me and I really want to explore, and some practices I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So that's kind of the first step, is really to like find the teacher that you enjoy, that like you feel like, yeah, okay, I get what you're talking about and I feel comfortable, and that actually really inspires me. And when you find that teacher that inspires you, like all these teachers, they have books, they have websites, they send out like either daily messages or weekly messages, and within those are like practice tips. So you just find your teacher, and within that you'll find your practices. But that practice that I shared, that feeling practice, is something that I do regularly, and it's something that at this point it's a practice that I use to recharge myself, because I remember the first time I did that practice, it was kind of by accident. Like I was exhausted, and my husband and I were away for the day, and we were in a hotel room, and I just lay there, and I think it was the first time I'd gotten away from my kid, and at that point I had 3 kids under the age of 5, and I just lay there and like was so amazed by the amount of like pain in my body, like the pain sensations in my body. And I had the thought of like, wow, like wouldn't it be cool if like I could lie down and just like feel pleasure in my body? And so I, over time, like I would just do that. I would like lie down and allow like energy to wash over me, and over time I did start to notice like more and more pleasure in my body. And over time I did start to notice like incredible amounts of pleasure in my body just lying there every day. And that's a practice that's really like special to me and really sacred to me, because I'm literally just lying there and allowing like the energy of the universe to flow through my body. It's so simple, and yet I discover like all the time like really vast amount of pleasure in my body just from lying there and allowing my body to deeply relax.
Wow. And that makes me question then, is it the chicken or the egg? Which comes first as far as the pleasure? Is it almost there always and it's just very subtle, and that we begin to tune in or check into that? Or is it that by relaxing and getting into that the pleasure comes?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think that our bodies have like an enormous potential for pleasure, and it's learning like where it is and how to tap into it. And then like the more you do that, the more is available to you. But also like the experience of like giving yourself pleasure also opens those pathways more, so that you can access them more often.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, to wrap up, Sheila, what if somebody wants you as their guru? Where would they connect with you and find you?
Well, I write on my website, which is ecstatic-birth.com. And, I blog regularly there. I also have something on my website called the Ecstatic Birth Training Sessions, where it's me, but it's also me alongside all the leaders in the world of natural childbirth and female sexuality. It's about 20 audio sessions that women can listen to and learn about like the different aspects of ecstatic birth prep. So that's something that's available on my website. People can purchase it and download it. And then for people that have already like listened to all this information and want to know how do I put that into my own personal experience, I do offer private consultations as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Any last thoughts as we wrap up, Sheila?
No, I'm just really grateful for all of you for being here and for being able to share this information, and for your receptivity. It's really inspiring. Thank you.
Incredible. Thank you so much. Well, if you love this class, Sheila will be joining us again on Tuesday, January 28th at 10 a.m. Pacific. Also, check out Sheila's previous Academy class and the virtual conferences she has hosted on our website. Later today at 12 p.m. Pacific, we'll be joined by Brian Johnson for a class on how to conquer your fears. And tomorrow, December 17th, we'll be joined at 2 p.m. Pacific with Dr. Sean Sullivan with a class on how to train your brain to lose weight in 21 days, part 2. So please remember, there is a new class every weekday, and starting this month, we'll have some 2-a-day classes as we have today. These classes are available forever. So for our subscribers, you can come back to this page in the next 48 hours to review this class at your leisure. Please take a moment and cement the 1 or 2 really big ideas that Sheila brought forth that really resonate for you, and set an intention for yourself to take one action in the next 24 hours with that big idea in mind, and make it a practice and see the work and play pay off. So thank you to the audience for taking this time, and thanks again, Sheila, for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.